it's your instructor, Miss Twilly, and the purpose of this video is to explain the interpersonal communication paper. As you should have already found out, the instructions are on Blackboard. This assignment is worth 130 points, and this is considered one of the major assignments, so please make sure you complete this assignment. So the whole idea of this paper is you're supposed to pick somebody that you've had a conflict with. This is not somebody that you had a conflict with when you were a child. This should be of the adult nature. So this is one person as an adult that you had a conflict with. This has to be a real person. It cannot be Beyonce. It cannot be Jesus, or it cannot be Santa Claus. This has to be a person that you know that you've had a relationship with. I know that some folks like to talk about their family, and the paper would be better and probably easier if you make sure that you pick one person in your family instead of trying to talk about your entire family. The requirements are that it is 5 to 6 pages. You will probably find that this paper will be longer than that, and that's okay. It should be APA in text citation, so you're gonna cite the textbook and the UALR survival guide. So those are two things that you're definitely going to text or cite, and I will make sure to send an email that will show you how to cite these things properly. And if you get confused, remember, you can always email me or text me with regards to what a citation should look like. So if you're not familiar, let me know and I will help you. In the instructions, it tells you how you're supposed to list your name and the date and what course and what section, of course my name and the assignment title, and you're supposed to include the academic integrity. So some things that students often forget, and that is the introduction and the conclusion parts of this paper. So make sure that you don't forget that. So let's talk about what should be an introduction for a paper. So things that I'm going to look for, and that is an attention getter. So this is sometimes called a hook, something to get my attention that makes me want to read your paper. And then you're going to give a thesis statement. So this can be, it doesn't have to be fancy. Literally, you're going to tell me what this paper is about. I'm going to write about a conflict with XYZ, okay? That is a thesis statement, and that is good enough for this paper. So work smarter, not harder. Then you're going to tell me what your paper is going to do. So in your introduction, you can use the language. First, I will give the case background. Then I will talk about the theoretical grounding. So basically you're telling me the headers, use that language and what's going to happen in each of those sections. That is the part, that makes up an introduction. Something to remember that is very, very simple. Your conclusion is going to mirror your introduction. So when you get to your conclusion, you're going to reflect back to your introduction, and you're going to go and you're going to use the past tense language. So you're going to say, I told you about the conflict with so-and-so, and I told you about this. I did that, I did this, use the first and second, and then lastly, language. And then you're going to kind of bring it full circle and connect something back to your attention getter that will be your conclusion, okay? If you have questions about that, make sure that you email me or text me. Here's a hint. Save those to the end because you don't know really what you're going to talk about. So do this middle part that we're about to talk about, and then do your introduction and your conclusion. Just do not forget to do them because that's leaving points on the table. If you don't have them, I can't give you points for it. So let's talk about that case background. So you should have already thought about that because you did the worksheet. So things that need to be in this case background to help you out the most will be a full description of the conflict, who this person is to you and who they are to you today. So if the relationship is intact, then you want to say that. If the relationship is no longer, then you want to say that. So you're going to describe a particular conflict, not a relationship that is, we have a lot of conflict. It is a particular conflict within a relationship. So this has to be a very specific thing that happened. You want to tell me who said what, So think about what was said. You want to tell me who did what. So think about who behaviors and things that happened, okay? Actions that were taken. So the richer that you make this case background, the easier you're going to have when it gets to the analysis and finding concepts, ethical implications, and foundational principles to connect back, okay? So the richer your case background, the easier it is going to be for you as you move through this paper. So important to know so once you describe the conflict, you're going to talk about why or what is the ethical dilemma in this conflict. Now, students often mess this up. So the ethical dilemma is yours, only yours, not their ethical dilemma. You can't do that for someone else. You can't say what the ethical dilemma was for the person you had this conflict. You can only say what the ethical dilemma was for you. Okay? So, and I like to use this example, and this is a phrase that people use, and it's very common. So I was stuck between a rock and a hard place. That's the dilemma. So if I said this, I could ruin the relationship. But if I stayed and put up with that treatment, then I would be filled with resentment and I would be unhappy. So that's the dilemma. Why are you stuck? How did you get to this place? Okay? So you have to name that for yourself. So, if it's about something that your mom said you couldn't go out, right? Well, you could lie to your mom, so you'd be lying. That's not good. And go do what you want to do, or not lie to your mom and you don't get to go do what you want to do. So that is the dilemma. What do you do? Okay? So just remember that. It is your ethical dilemma, not someone else's. Once again, if you have questions about that, let me know. If you want to send me your ethical dilemma and say, Ms. Twilley, is this what you're talking about? And I will answer you and I will say yes or no, okay? All right, so that is your case background. And remember, these are headings. So the header for that section is actually that case background. I'm going to be looking for those headers. Those are easy points. Don't let those get away from you. The next section is theoretical grounding, okay? So what you're going to do is you're going to identify one of the civil and ethical communication implications, except concern for a community, because you can't use that one. It won't apply. And it says course manual, but it means survival guide, okay? So that's where they're going to be. These are not in your textbook. These are not on Blackboard. These are literally in the survival guide. And you're going to pick one that goes with your conflict, okay? You're going to define it, so tell us what it is, and then you're going to provide an in-text citation. So you're going to say UALR Survival Guide, 2017. I'll take it. The important things about an APA citation is that it tells where it is, or it tells where it's from, or it tells the author's name if there's an author. If there's 3 authors, make sure you cite all 3 authors and you give me the date, okay? The year is super, super important. You're going to define it like I just said, and you're going to provide an example separate from your case relationship. So I want you to tell me, what does fairness mean, or what does it look like in a different example from the one that's in your conflict, just to let me know that you know what fairness means, or you know what respect means, okay? So those were 2 ethical implications that you could use, possibly. And then you're going to pick 2 relevant and meaningful communication concepts. If they aren't meaningful, meaning I think that you just picked them to pick them, or you're trying to force a concept into your paper that doesn't belong, I'm going to call you on that, okay? I'm going to deduct points because you're trying to force the square peg into the round hole, okay? Make sure you pick 2 concepts from your book that make sense, okay? Remember, concepts are the pink vocabulary words in your textbook. These are going to be from chapters 5 through 8. Make sure your concepts come from chapters 5 through 8. And you're going to talk about how they contribute to the conflict in your relationship. You're going to identify the concept, clearly identify, I'm choosing this conflict, this concept. You're going to explicitly tell me what it is. You're going to define that concept. Don't forget that. And you're going to provide an in-text citation. So you're going to Lane Abigail Gooch, 2016, or whatever year your book is, and that's how you're going to cite that. Okay? The reason we cite is because these ideas and these definitions are not ours. Okay? You may think of them, but they're still not yours. You have to tell me where you got that information. And then you're going to provide an example, once again, separate from your case, that shows the reader what each concept looks like in action. Okay? So once again, just letting me know that you know what it looks like in real life, separate from your scenario, separate from your conflict. Then in the next section, it's going to be labeled case analysis. Okay? This is where what happened in the relationship. You're going to label this. You can label this analysis section, or you can label it case analysis. You're going to give an example of the ethical dilemma from the relationship. You're not thinking of a new ethical dilemma. You're going back to that same ethical dilemma that you talked about in that case background. Okay? So then you're going to explain what makes the example an ethical dilemma. Next, you're going to apply the applicable communication concepts. These are the same two communication concepts that you just defined and gave examples for. You're going to talk about how they manifested themselves within your relationship. So how did those concepts apply to your relationship? So what did the concept look like in the relationship? How does each concept contribute to the conflict in the relationship? So you're going to use descriptive examples to make sense of the communication in your case. So remember when I talked about, giving examples of what someone said or someone did. Now you're going to connect that information or those examples back to those concepts. Okay, that's the same thing for that ethical dilemma or that ethical implication that you're just talked about too. Okay, you don't assume the examples that you provide speak for themselves. So when you give your examples, you must explain those examples, all right? And pull it back into what those concepts are, and you must explain it. Okay, that ends that section. The next section will be conflict management, recommendations. Okay? Now, you're going to make a recommendation for yourself, and you're going to make a recommendation for the other person. The first recommendation will be for yourself, and that's going to be using a new communication concept. So you can't use a communication concept that you've already used in the previous section. You're going to find a brand new one, and it's going to be, you're going to define it. You're going to give an APA citation for it, and you're going to describe how you could use the concept in your relationship. And you're going to explain why the concept might work to positively manage the conflict and improve the relationship. So if the relationship is over, you're going to pretend if you had known about this concept, how that would have improved the outcome. Okay? If the relationship still exists, but it's in the process of this conflict, use that concept to really, really look at how you could apply it and what would be the positive outcome from using that concept. Then you're going to do the same thing for the other person. You're going to identify a new concept for them, and you're going to define it and cite it, and then you're going to talk about how that person could use that concept and what would be the positive outcome of using that concept. Then you're going to move to the next section, and this is the reflection section. You're going to, at this point, identify, define, and provide a citation. Okay, so you're going to name it, define it, and cite it from the survival guide, even though it says course manual in these instructions, of a UALR foundational communication principle that illustrates how analyzing this relationship has influenced your perception of the role of communication in relationships and conflict. So, for example, communication is simultaneous. So things are happening, more than one message is being sent. It's not just like, life isn't like a play. I say my line and I wait for someone else to say their line. I'm saying things, my face is saying things, people's body language is sending me messages. Communication is happening simultaneously. So, how would that impact the conflict? How has that changed how you read, how you view this conflict? Maybe you were only thinking about yourself when you were trying to get your message across, and you weren't paying attention to someone's facial expressions or how they were reacting to your message. Something like that. But you're going to find one of those in the survival guide, the UALR Foundation Communication Principles, that are connected to your conflict, and how they have impacted the role of communication in conflict is regarding how you see it. Then I want you to tell me how the relationship might be influenced if you were to actually share this paper with the other person. So think about that. Think about what it would be like to actually share this paper. Or if you plan on sharing this paper, go ahead and tell me that, and tell me the outcome of that, or tell me what you expect the outcome to be. Then you're going to do your conclusion, and I've already explained to you what a conclusion is. And then you're going to do your APA reference citations. I will email those to you, to the class, and I will show you exactly what they should look like. So you should have zero questions about that. But if you do, you can text me or email me like always. So good luck on your papers. I know they are very, these instructions seem a little bit complicated, but take it one step at a time, and I promise you'll be fine. Do not throw these instructions away. Follow this, use this guide, and move through the paper and make sure you have all the headings and you have your introduction and conclusion, and you guys will be fine. All right, have a good one.
I got my red dress on tonight, dancing in the dark.